This is a good one for schools. Schools want to give money to people that have shown proven history in high school of being active and value members. Like they want to put you on a billboard. So when I went to Bloomsburg and got all of that money, it's because I was a part of everything in high school. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do what? Be a part of everything here in college. You can put me as an ambassador. You might want to put me up there like, this is how schools think about when they give institutional money, if that makes sense.
All right, guys, welcome back. EYL, back home.
Yes.
So this is going to be a follow-up episode.
Welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Sure. Sonia Lewis, a.k.a. the student loan doctor.
Yes.
So we spoke around 2 years ago, and it was a great episode. So we got your whole backstory, how you started the business, and a variety of different things. So we'll go straight into it this time because I think that being that we already kind of spoke on that side, now we can kind of just focus straight on the student loan issues. And there's a lot that's going on. Obviously, it's very time sensitive. The president, Joe Biden, has made some new changes. So there's a lot to talk about. And a lot of people are confused. A lot of people don't know what's going on, what's real and what's not.
Yep.
And now more than ever, people need the information because, student loans have only gone up. So $1 trillion in debt total.
Real debt.
Dollar
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, real debt.
First and foremost, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me back. I will say business changed significantly. It's a blessing over your lives. The awareness that you guys brought to our business after the first episode, I really can't thank you guys enough. Just because it is in line. Everything you guys talk about, there's always somebody's little elephant. Like, but what about my loans? When you think about investing, home buying, any of that, somebody has a probably 6-figure student loan problem that may stop them from doing all the great things you guys are talking about. So when we shed a little light or a little perspective, it just makes people want to go actually do what you guys are telling them to do. Yeah,
it's one of those things that as teenagers, I can remember, even now when we talk to young adults, nobody prepares them for this moment. And we try to say it's probably the biggest financial decision you're going to make at 18. I mean, obviously, if somebody gets married later in life, that'll be one. But college is that. And if you make the wrong decision or if you don't have the right information, like you said, you're talking 6 figures in debt, which is tough to climb out of, especially when you talk about interest rates, especially when you talk about the cost of living. It's tough. It's almost insurmountable. And we don't know. We don't know. This is why episodes like this are so important. Yeah.
All right. So, okay, let's start here. So we posted last week, a couple weeks ago, that Biden announced to cancel more than $5 million in student loan debt.
More money,
and additional. And a lot of people, they was confused. They're like, well, I don't know anybody that has received any cancellations of student loans. And people was like, well, I actually did receive a cancellation of student loans.
I saw the comments. Yeah.
So what exactly happened and who actually benefits from this?
So here's what's going to happen. We're going to see more and more headlines like 5 billion, 5 million. We're going to just see all these headlines because what is coming up? Anybody know?
Election.
So this is going to be the carrot, if you will, to get people to reelect in terms of our age group. So you figure anywhere from like age 30 to like 55, the student loan carrot is definitely going to keep being pulled. So he did actually give out money. And I do know from my community, a lot of people benefit from it. Now, let's talk about who benefited from it the most. You probably were over age 45. You probably were in school like 1995 to 2000, because there was a time period around that type of money that he gave out. And the term here is called income-driven repayment. They were looking to see, were you in school or in repayment for 20, 25 years? And then here's the thing. They even made some exclusions. Let's say you weren't in repayment, but you had loans that amount of time in repayment. They hit forgiven. Well, we might get into it, but there was a big glitch that occurred recently too. So even though they put the headline out there about the 5, I think it was billion, right? Billion. We're using terms billions now, right? We saying billions?
Billion, 5 billion. Yeah.
The challenge is that there were about over 9 million people left out in that last round. So this is the first time ever that they actually made an announcement that they messed up. That was very big with the Department of Education.
I feel like they always messing up.
Well, they actually said they did it though.
Yeah.
So what happened was there's literally what they do is they push a button. It's like a real one button. And if you qualify according to their system, you would have got the email, you get the letter, things go into perspective. Well, a lot of people, over 9 million people got skipped because if you had just consolidated a few years prior, or you know how all these loans are being transferred to different lenders, the lenders aren't showing the full loan history. So a lot of people accidentally got skipped.
So who are the lenders that would qualify? Because I know, I mean, Navient, I know.
Well, any federal lender can qualify, but
Okay.
the problem is let's give it a good example. You know how everybody went from Fed loans to Mohilia? That was in the public service loan forgiveness.
Yes.
Well, just because you went over to Mohilia doesn't mean all of your history went with you. And there used to be an old system, if you're education, you'll know it, called NSLDS. It actually used to be open to the public. Until the pandemic, we all could have looked at everybody's loan history on that site. Colleges and universities use it. Now it's a private site. So if you want what's called your pre-conversion record, you have to request it from the Department of Education now. It's very It's very elusive, and it's actually not beneficial to just the everyday person to be able to track their progress. You used to could track how long you were in forbearance, repayment, in school. Those are the type of pieces of information you need to fight for yourself to get your loans forgiven.
So, okay. So, how do you apply for that?
For the pre-conversion, or which part?
What the Joe Biden, what he just did?
Okay, so if you missed it, a lot of people missed it. Like I said, over 9 million people missed it. What you would have to do is file a complaint. So we actually have something we're putting together, and we've been helping people one-on-one file a complaint. So the cool thing about it is that it's going to take them about, let's say 3 to 6 months from now. We're in December?
We're in December.
So 3 to 6 months from now, they're going to literally go through each person's complaint. So that department is called the Ombudsman Group. They'll look through, they'll say, hey, Rashad, you're right. You should have been forgiven. We didn't see your pre-conversion record from prior. Some people will be told no. Let's say you were in grad school for forever. You weren't in repayment. Then, so you have to literally submit a complaint through studentaid.gov, right?
Yeah.
And it can't be like, I'm upset. Y'all didn't forgive me. So they're going to close it out. So it has to be thought out. And you should even like highlight or be prepared to say if you know which loans you believe could be forgiven. So spend a little time on it.
Got you. So that was for the 9 million people. The biggest one, and when you came in, you're like, Troy, how your loans doing?
Well, I just knew you was going to say they were going. I was excited.
Well, there's some confusion around it, right? Because I feel like they're making mistakes. So the public service loan forgiveness.
Yes.
So there's a couple things around it. Let's just explain to the people again what that is. And then I know there's a bunch of dates. So I get the emails like, hey, this is expiring by the October.
Yeah.
So we'll start there, and then we'll dive into some of the misconceptions and confusion around the public service loan forgiveness.
So just depending on the audience that's watching this, most people, I would say, just even think about your events are between 30 and 50. Would you say that's about right?
Yep.
So if you're between 40 and 50, you got to be careful here. You want to log into studentaid.gov, and you want to look at your loans, click view details, and you want to see if it says that you have a direct loan. Very important. If you have what's called an FFELP loan, that's not going to work. So it has to be direct loan. That's all you need to know. Then you'll be eligible for any forgiveness programs coming up, even Biden loan forgiveness. But they're doing something really, really, I don't want to say sneaky, but one email went out about it. If you have an FFELP loan, you have until December 31st.
This year. To apply.
Or you will never get anything forgiven. This is a heavy word to say never.
Okay.
But the administration has said you will never, like they're being using. So what will happen is if somebody's watching this in January, good to know, you will want to, if you have missed this information, you will want to contact the Department of Education, not your lender, and see if there's any way that you can get an extension. Now, what might happen, which is important to note, go to studentaid.gov for this update. There may be an extension given because when we look at the data, that's over 10 million people. And we know that there's 43 million borrowers. 10 million are going to be excluded from forgiveness forever because of that rule.
Yeah. And from a standpoint, like you said, there is an election. You want to have the most people
right.
involved.
That's a hard rule to put around election.
You can sway them around that. But so the loan forgiveness, the teacher, well, we'll get to the teacher loan forgiveness, but the public
The best program I think that exists.
Yes. It's still the same requirements, right? It's 120 qualifying payments, 10 years of service. And so if you have those things, most people think they qualify.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was under that assumption.
Yeah.
And then when I was filling out the application, there was a box.
Right.
And the box said, and this is to my understanding, I was like, wait, I don't know if I qualify anymore because technically I don't work as a teacher in the building anymore.
I do it. That's why I wanted to clarify.
So I was like, wait, I don't qualify anymore. And to my assumption, because when I read the fine line, it said, hey, if you're no longer employed, then how do we do it?
Didn't do it.
So I didn't. The first time I didn't do it. I did it earlier and then I didn't qualify for the first, before Biden changed the rules.
Right.
Then I saw that line and I'm like,
the reason why I'm hammering you on that is
Yeah.
because that thought is what's stopping everybody from reapplying. So I wanted people to hear you say that.
Yeah.
So I read it again. I just still feel like I want to just, tell everybody that's listening, it's not about what you feel or think anymore. Just submit.
Okay.
Because there are new rules. And what you don't know is what you're talking about is the rules that you could have missed was October 2022. They put a hard stop.
Exactly.
But it's not a hard stop. This is why I said they waiver. You go on the website for a limited time only. The TEPSLF program has been extended. That's what you're under. But nobody's going to call you. Nobody text him and say, hey, Troy, did you get that paper in? So people did what? They just let it go and forgot about it.
So I still got a chance.
You have a fighting chance.
Okay.
And so I also tell people, because we are coming up on Biden loan forgiveness, those that are eligible for TEPSLF, and I say these acronyms a lot and I say them hard, so that I will hope that they go to studentaid.gov and type it in.
Yeah.
Like if you type in TEPSLF, everything comes up. You got to literally go to your old employers, pull up on them, get a wet signature, and keyword, mail it certified.
Mail it, okay.
No stamps.
Got you.
They throw them out.
Got
It's
you.
40 people that work here, y'all. In theory,
I'm writing. I'm listening. Yeah. So there's a couple of things now, right? Because the public service loan and the teacher loan forgiveness are two different things.
Yeah.
Right. So if somebody works 10 years as a teacher, right, but they got the loan forgiveness from this, do they work in conjunction or
not anymore? Good question. So if you are a teacher and you could also get PSLF, it used to be before October 2022, you could do both.
Yeah.
But now you have to do one or the other. Obviously, we want to do PSLF.
they're going to forgive
And
more?
then I get like tickle pink about this stuff, so exciting.
Yeah.
So in July coming up, now you can make, they say you're going to be able, they didn't say what number, multiple payments on your PSLF. So I wanted to wait to tell you this on air.
Okay.
So let's say you had 2 years left. That's 24 months. Everybody follow? You don't have to wait 24 months anymore as of July. Let's say your payment only came out to, I'm making this up, $250 a month. And you I got, however much in my savings. You can make those payments a lot quicker. Now, what I don't know yet is it only that, Troy can make $5 in a month extra?
Yeah.
We don't know if there's a number yet per month.
Lump sum it.
You can lump sum.
Yeah.
No. And so what I read recently the other day, it sounds like it's going to be a lump sum situation.
Yeah.
Remember, guys, they're coming up. And you see how it's perfectly timed for July? We're coming up on what? Election.
Yeah. So here's my last thing on it. And Shadi, I thank you for giving me the grievance here, because this is personal, right? And I want everybody to hear it because I'm going through it myself.
Yeah.
You want to do the public service loan forgiveness because you can get more forgiven. If I did the teacher loan, the max I can get is $17,500.
Yeah, so we don't want to do teacher no more.
So you want to go towards that. Now you're saying that there's a Biden loan. So what's the difference between those?
So this is for everybody watching. I want to use my phone for a second
Yep.
because I had to read this to you guys verbatim. And, I told you, I think somebody black made this up. The administration is looking different these days. All right. So these are the 5 groups that are eligible for Biden loan forgiveness. Number 1, again, I didn't make this up and I'm not paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And I took this from Forbes. So borrowers with current balances greater than what they originally borrowed.
Makes
Everybody.
sense. Everybody.
Okay, most 95%. Number 2, those who entered into repayment on their student loans 25 or more years ago. So they're changing it from 20 to 25.
So more people.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, next one. Students who attended programs of questionable value. You ever go to a school that was questionable? When I sent this to my team, they were like, "Did you make this up?" I'm like, "No, I took it offline."
So that's some of those like them online schools that kind of disappeared.
But they're keeping it very blanket on purpose.
But that would be like an example. Yeah. Okay.
All right, number 4. Borrowers eligible for existing relief programs, including public service loan forgiveness. This you.
This is me.
Who just haven't applied.
That's me.
No, I'm being serious.
No,
like, that's
me.
you.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. The last one. Y'all ready for this one? This everybody. Borrowers in financial hardship.
Now, what qualifies financial hardship, though?
So the problem here is, and the good problem, is that my belief, and I said this on my platform, they made things so broad because they want almost everybody to be eligible. You kind of can find yourself in one of 5.
Right.
Then number 2, is this an application again, or is this general? It has to be some form of application for you to be subjective like this. Then the last thing is, and to your point, number 3, this is why I think it's going to pass through. So when they did the first round of Biden loan forgiveness, and again, I think everything's political anyway, they put it through, what was the one that Trump had said we can have the pandemic pause for? I'm sorry, I don't know that one. I think it was the Pandemic Act. There was a clause that a lot of things got passed through. Mm-hmm. So they tried to attach loan forgiveness to that, but that's not what that act was for. So the act that exists that they're going to put this program under is the 1965 Act. So it's called the 1965 Higher Education Act, passed by Lyndon B. Johnson. Okay. So I have a friend, shout out to Ebony. She is a reporter for the White House, and she texts me all the time and says, "What questions do I ask Secretary Cardona?" I said, "You ask him these questions. Do you think that you're going to put Biden loan forgiveness again through the 1965 Higher Education Act?" He said yes. So when it came out, that's what they're doing. This doesn't have to go through the Supreme Court. This can just exist. So what they did was they put a committee of about 20 people together. They influential leaders, community members, good representation of minorities, and they put together this parameter, what I just read to you, and this just has to now get approved. But good news is not approved by the Supreme Court.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So what is SAVE?
The SAVE program. So this is one of the best programs that I think is going to be very helpful. And we even see the difference with our clients and payments. So this is the new repayment plan. It replaces the repay plan. A lot of people got automatically placed into the SAVE plan. If you didn't get automatically placed into the SAVE plan, it's because they couldn't pull your tax information. Now they're just pulling it. So it's a good and bad thing. But long story short, this plan as of next year, because I just checked everything again before I got here, it used to be a 10% repayment. It's going to go down to 5%. Right now, it's still holding at 10% repayment. Mm-hmm. But the flexibilities of it, they're now letting you say, even though I'm married, I can say that I don't have access to my spouse's information, which is a big deal, because if I have $150,000 in loans and we may combine $200,000, you think the whole money of the house is going to go to this payment. And most people, that's not the case. So now they can say, which is new than before, I cannot access my spouse information. So basically, like, can you evaluate me on just my information? So it's a big deal to help with people's payments.
I'll save money.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's for anybody?
Yeah, that's going to be based off of income. So the sweet spot is going to be if you make about $45,000, that they increase that number. It used to be like if you made $30,000, if you make about $45,000, you will have a $0 payment. If you are making 55, and most people make about 55 to 65, that's going to allow you to have like a $100 payment. So we're really excited about it. We see our clients are like, are you serious? I can afford that. I can start repayment. So we just hear the excitement over the phone, because before they get on the phone with us, their estimated payment is like $2,000 because it's just 6-figure debt.
Now, all these repayments that have to qualify, they have to be part of a specific program. Like I know before it was like it had to be like income based, and
so the SAVE is income driven. Yep. So yep.
Same thing. Mm-hmm. So it bases on how much you make. Percentage of that is what you're gonna have to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quick tip, because a lot of people did really well in the pandemic financially. Maybe they had got a side hustle or side business, whatever. If that is not your case anymore,
right.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah.
You need to submit a pay stub. you need to let them know there was a financial change. You can put that, it says, what did anything change? A lot of people skip it and hit no, it did change. You're not probably making the same money you made when you did your taxes in the pandemic. So you should let them know.
So what
now.
you report, right, for the taxes.
So you should submit a pay stub. If that changes, well, you would be surprised. Like for example, I'm giving you a good example. We have clients that are, for example, travel nurses. Nurses was, running it up in the pandemic because they were needed.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of coming down a bit, kind of normal workflow. And the one lady said to me, she said, girl, she said, I made $300,000. She said, this year it's looking like $90,000.
Right.
She said, how do I show that difference?
Yeah.
So we had to send a pay stub.
So if that income repayment was 5% of that, we're talking about a huge difference in payment per month. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's good to know.
So what about borrower's defense forgiveness?
So this program is the funniest one of them all. And so the thing about this business, when I first started it, not to be funny, I was like, I started business as consistent. Nothing's changing. This stuff changes every week now. Thanks, Biden. Keeps us relevant. So borrower's defense is one of those programs that literally is changing almost every 3 to 6 months. So borrower's defense, if you went to a school that they identified, there's about 200 schools that Secretary Cardona said these schools were fraudulent. For example, University of Phoenix was on the list, DeVry was on the list, ITT Tech, I don't know.
It sounds like every commercial.
Every commercial you ever watched was on the list. No. So if it was a for-profit school with a commercial, check the list.
Okay.
All right. So when you see your school's name on the list, you're probably thinking, oh, but I didn't go there. No. When I tell you this July, they changed the rules again that said if you ever attended, they're going to ask you a little bit more questions, need a little bit more paperwork. You fill it in, you send it off, in about a year's time, you're probably going to get forgiven. And with this program, they're giving you back the money you paid on your loans. A check in the mail, too. Now, I thought it was kind of like BS, I'm not going to lie. But I have a friend who screenshotted me his ITT checks. Checks because he paid for his education there. So it's a really great program.
So while you're applying for these programs, and it's because most people will say, well, I applied for it, I'm going to wait to see what the ruling is. They stop paying.
All right.
What's your thoughts?
So right now we're in what's called the on-ramp program. On-ramp means they just are anticipating people are not about to pay this year. Like you have until September 30th, 2024 to get your life together with your student loans. October 1, 2024, they will start to report to your credit. They will, you will be late. You will be going back into default. They'll take your taxes again, not this year coming up, but the following year, 25.
Yeah.
So you have a year to figure it out. So I say this with grace. If you need to go into forbearance because you have this year. That's what this year is for. However, a lot of people don't have to put themselves into forbearance. If your lender is Mohilia in this example, Mohilia is putting people into what's called an administrative forbearance because they can't handle all of the workload that's coming their way. Yeah. This is new. They even are pulling in other lenders. Just think about that, to do their work.
It's a lot of people.
So Aid Advantage is now processing all the consolidations for Mohilia right now. So
forbearance means that I don't have to, I'm putting a pause on the repayment of my loans. Now, when I was in school, and I don't know if this might have changed, it's been a long time, you had 6 months after you graduated or completed whatever schooling you had to begin paying the money back, your loan back. If not, you would go into forbearance.
Right.
Are those rules still to change? Are still the same, or have they changed over the past
It's still the same. So you're talking about you were in school deferment. So we got to use the right words, deferment for 6 months.
6 months, yes.
And then when you was like, I still can't pay, you went into forbearance.
Right.
When I'm talking about what Mohilia is doing is putting people into what's called an administrative forbearance, which they cover the interest and still allow you to get months for PSLF.
But those months, those count toward?
Because it's their fault. Basically, the government is saying this is on us. When there was a pandemic pause, the government said, this is on us. So when we were in a pandemic pause, if you had direct loans, you were in an administrative forbearance.
During that time, so this pandemic pause was 2.5 years. We just started
the
paying.
The longest 2.5 years of my life.
So talk about that, because I would imagine that as in your profession of teaching people about the importance of student loans, there are some people where you might have suggested, hey, there's no interest on the loan right now. This might be a good time to pay it back.
Yeah.
What was that 2.5 period like for you in your business?
Oh, well, I remember when I got the news. I saw it on TV and I had to sit down for this one. I said, no, hold on, put my glasses on because I couldn't understand what was coming up on the screen. No student loan payments until it was like March. I think I called her first. It was like, shout out to Denise. So I was like, girl, is this like a 30-day thing? What you think? Like 60 days? Because every business owner knows what's in their cushion account. Like if I had to float my employees and all of that. But when they did that second extension for the year, I said, oh, so now what I did was, and honestly, I made a lot of money in the pandemic pause because I'm a creative. So I said, okay, you don't have a payment. You're going to learn about your loans. You're going to fix other things. So I had put out a student loan ebook. Now that's kind of radical for people to buy a student loan ebook. Let's just think about that for a second. Who wants to buy an ebook around student loans? But what I did was I said, meet me at 9 p.m. And I probably am one of the most consistent people on Instagram. I teach every day more than most people. I'm going to either teach you at 10 a.m., 9 p.m., or 11 p.m. Sometimes I do 2 shows a day. So what I was doing was I was building a community and we would have fun. We started doing, we would do student loan information first. I start off like I'm a reporter. Then my next personality came on. That's me. I would put some glasses on, some Gucci glasses, and I would turn to Susan. I mean, it was just really fun times.
Shout out to Susan.
But here's what happened. It made people actually care about their loans and their credit. And then sometimes we would do Instagram speed dating. And I said, in order to join in, remember how you do the lives with the different people? You had to have a 740 credit score or better. I mean, it was really good times. Now you're like, well, how did you make money? So what happened was in that time period, I think it's because I was very like hands-on. I'm a teacher at heart, you know, that you teach as a college professor. I would say, meet me at 9 o'clock, bonnet friendly on Zoom, and we would log into our student loans together. We would look at your credit report. And I'm like, did you see this? You should do this. So it was just a lot of teaching happening. But I had to shift my mentality as a business owner because here's what was not going to happen. I wasn't going to close my business because of something that I perceived to be as temporary. Now, when we went into the next year, I was like, oh, now we don't know when these loans are coming back. That's when I think, I'm not going to lie, I think I did get a little nervous, but I also was very wise with the money I had made. So when I made money off of digital products, and I think I was one of the earlier people doing digital products before everybody started doing it. Shout out to my friend Nehemiah. He called me, like, blew up my phone. You got to have good friends that blow up your phone. And he just said to me, he was like, you need a digital product out of everybody. So when it came out, it did really well. I grabbed a couple properties and I bought them in cash. And what I did was I renovated them and I did the Airbnb wave. Now we know Airbnb is or isn't what it is now. At the time, people were looking for places to have like a little escape during the pandemic. So me personally, I had to step out of the shell of the student loan doctor so that things could be sustainable. And I wanted to make sure, like, my team has been with me for over 5 years at this point. I didn't want to let anybody go. I don't want to go look for good people again. So if I need to send some floating money, we call it, or just appreciate you money, I needed to be able to generate that otherwise. Because the student loan doctor business itself wasn't doing great in the last, let's say, year and a half. But my endeavors were doing good.
So when you see October 1st, 2023,
you know, this is bad to say this, but I was so excited when it was firm whenever payment. That is so bad. I'm sorry, y'all. Like, when I tell you.
Well, you back in the game.
I was like, wait a minute. And you know what? I actually missed our clients and they missed us. So we are like probably 3 weeks booked out at this point, which is a good average. We don't want to be that far booked out. Shout out to my amazing team. I'm like, because, you know, they work part-time. Most of them work part-time. Some work full-time. The ones that work part-time, I'm like, do you got PT or it's your full-time to handle this calendar of calls? So it's been really good to be so received back. I've even started a training program where I've been training other experts because the reality is this is a $1 trillion problem. And I don't envision myself running a call center of staff. I don't want that. That is not my sweet spot. Everybody knows what their sweet spot is. I'm a creative, but I don't want to be a manager in that sense.
Let me ask you this. On the student loan side, What's the on-ramp program?
So we talked about the on-ramp program is the one that everybody is technically in, whether you ask to be in it or not. You don't got to call for this, guys. If you was just to say next month, I can't afford this payment, I'm trying to figure out how now to do. You don't have to call them and tell them. The payment just will add up. Now, some people can go into forbearance if you want to, that you're not getting behind, but you're not going to be penalized.
Well, how do interest rates work on student loans? Because I know it's like
they're regulated.
People,
yep.
Yeah, but there's different, right? If it's federal student loan as opposed to
private.
Private.
Okay, so federal interest rates are regulated and are announced every July. Private loans, they're not regulated and they can change and it could be whimsical.
Based off of your income and stuff?
Not your income. It could be your credit. Let's say you missed a payment on your Macy's card.
Yeah.
Your private loan could change your interest rate.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
So like for people that's going into college or parents, what are best practices for them to actually...
No private loans.
Don't apply for private loans?
So I have a philosophy and people don't like it, but I'll say it. Like, don't go to a school you can't pay for. You can't afford. And what I mean by that is it's like, okay, if it's in your plan to use a federal loan, okay, I'm with it because there are parameters to keep you safe financially. But when we start talking about going to institutions that require you to use a private loan, that may not be the best choice because that private loan is forever.
So is there any, what's the difference between a federal and private loan?
Federal loans.
Let's go there. And is there any instance where a private loan is actually more beneficial than a federal loan?
I haven't seen it. So federal loans are regulated by the government. So this is where you have a certain amount that you can borrow every year, even through grad school, even through getting like a doctoral program. But this is to protect you. So for example, when the pandemic happened, we would have never thought we would have had a pandemic, right? The government says, we got your interest, we've got your payment, this is on us. Those that had private loans, they didn't get a pause. And it was really hard for us to hear those calls and those cries because there is nothing you can do when you have a private loan. In that sense, there's no pause. So a private loan is going to be beneficial if you have to close a gap. And I just have to say this, like if you have to go to that institution because a community college or a state college is not going to cause for you 9 times out of 10 to use a private loan. If you want to go to Ivy League school, if you want to go to a HBCU and there's not scholarship present, a private loan closes the gap.
Yeah, so because a lot of the Ivy League schools, the funding from the government is very minimal.
Yeah.
So even, and some of the state schools, because when we talk about affordability, it's almost like that is the only option, right? Because when a person fills out a FAFSA, let's say they're a middle class family and they bring in $150,000.
We call it the sticky middle.
Exactly. So people whose parents are in that middle class, they fill out the FAFSA, right? Because in order to even get a student loan, you have to fill that out first. They'll tell you they're giving you $900 a semester,
right?
But the tuition is $8,000 or $15,000 a semester. There's a gap there, and so this is when now it's like if I want to go to the school, the options are I got to come up with this money, or take out private loans. And so, is your suggestion, all right? Maybe if it's $15,000, this isn't the place for me. Yeah. No.
So unpopular opinion, and we'll see how these comments go. I'm going to stand on don't go. Because see, you got to remember, we're taking calls every day from people who are crying over decisions that they made 10, 20 years ago that weren't wise. We're like, you should hear how these parents are talking about their kids. Like, you can hear them going to another room, or let's say the kids are grown now and she ain't even finished, and now she want to be a bartender, and so now even Parent Plus loans are like the bane of our existence because it's like the worst federal loan possible.
What's a Parent Plus?
So Parent Plus loans is when a parent gets involved and takes out money on behalf of their child, but the interest rate is 8%. And they only have one income-driven repayment plan instead of it being like a 5% margin like we talked about. It's 20%. It's just the worst plan. It's literally like a private loan. Again, it's just protected in things of like a pandemic, right? But to hear the calls that we take, like somebody, this is true story. But I was so happy he just got forgiven. He had $300,000 in Parent Plus loans. He had 3 kids that went to Ivy League educations. He's a doctor, so he thought that I can do it because I'm a doctor. Look, they might want to be doctors, right? But the bill was on him. So you know me. I was like, well, are they doctors? Because these are older. That's why he got them forgiven. He was like, no. I'm like, what do they do? And then he was like, you don't want to know. One is only making $30,000 a year because he's a numbers guy. He's making $350,000 a year. He owes $300,000. I think he had like $50,000 his own. So let's say $350,000. But his kids are making less than $100,000. This was not a good investment. But we can't say to our kids, you failed me. You know, like, they can change their minds.
My parents had a Parent Plus loan. Okay. Thankfully, it wasn't for as much.
They all right?
Yeah, they got. I mean, so the first 2 years I went to school, again, FAFSA was like $900.
Right.
And there was that gap. So rather than trying to take a private loan, we did the Parent Plus loan, and it kind of eased the gap. But then the final 2 years, it was like I do it private because I didn't want to put more debt on top of my parents. I've always been thinking about my family.
Yeah.
And so. But again, those interest rates, they climb. And when you do private, like you said, it could be anything. It could be
one thing.
You didn't pay, like you said, your Macy's card. Oh, yeah. And now the interest rate that started at 5% can go to like 11%.
I've seen somebody go from 9% to 19.9. You know how much of a difference that makes?
It's crazy. It's crazy. So, I mean, for young adults who are 16, 17, 18, well, 17, 18, about to go to college, and I know it doesn't sound sexy, but community college, probably the safest and most financially
I'm okay with
route.
State colleges. I'm
I'm
okay for you to go where you want to go if somebody else can help pay in terms of a scholarship. And then the other thing is, I think this is where parents and those that are going to be parents that are watching this show have to understand that there is still accountability there. Like, for example, what does Scholarship Sunday look like at your house if your child is in high school? You're probably like, well, we don't do Scholarship Sunday. We're going to start. So meaning you have to sit down with your child and say, in junior year, not really senior, but more so junior year, what scholarships are we thinking about applying for? Like, did you write that essay? Can I read it for you? Because if we don't push our children to apply and we're not in that as a partner with them, it will fall back on you as mom or dad.
Or take them to the park.
And the thing that we see that we're most...
Get a wicked jump shot.
Right. And if your child don't have no skills like that, then hopefully they're academic.
Yeah.
Right, like for example, I knew I wasn't going to get no sports scholarship. That's we're not going to do that. Yeah. But I'm smart. Okay, so my mom got really, really sick my junior year. Like, she almost died. So we had a plan. The plan was, she was making at that time, it's just me and her, I'm only child, about $65,000 a year back in the 2000s. That's pretty okay. She was going to send me to a state college, and her plan was she was going to make payments for the difference of whatever I didn't receive from FAFSA, right? That was our plan. We had a plan. Well, when she got sick and lost her hearing, she had to retire early as a teacher. The plan is now gone. So I was like, but the plan ain't here to stay in Philly. So I had to do what? Apply for every scholarship known to man. I can remember the day I knocked on my principal's door and I was like, whatever scholarships I can be considered for, I need to be considered. They all knew what was happening with my mom. I went to a small high school. So on graduation day, I left with $17,000 in scholarships. Oh. When I got to school, it didn't stop. Somebody still got to pay for this. I knocked on every door. There was before websites, and I'm not that old, but I just knew. I think people know you better. On every dean's door, I'm not making this up, had my sneakers on that day. And I wound up, by the end of the day, I was able to apply for a full ride. So I got that. Oh, but don't stop there, because you need pocket money. Remember, my mom is now not working. She's deaf. I got to send money home now because I'm a responsible college student. Now I got to get the scholarship for the books. So if it was a flyer that said, tell us about a traumatic experience you've overcome to go to college, I've got several. I'm from Philly. So I wrote that up and sent that in. I got that $250. Like, when I tell you, if you talk too loud about a scholarship, I probably took your scholarship. Like, I had to graduate. Yeah. So when I meet students and parents that don't have that dog or that understanding, I'm like, you got to have some money tucked aside, because it went from my mom with a game plan to us having to rely on my grandmother, who was a retired school teacher. Her retirement probably paid $40,000. 3 people on $40,000 is not going to put somebody through college. No. Even after that little loan they give you, my mommy had no credit. Again, she's not working. So it was just so much. I remember that experience. So when I talk to students, like if I go to a high school, for example, or I'm speaking to a freshman class in college, I'm going to give you my story, because something has to change. Somebody or something has to pay for this experience if you want it to be whatever you want it to be. that student loan debt you're about to leave with, life in the 20s and 30s aren't going to be as fun as you think so. Because when it's time to home buy, we don't even talk about dating, marriages. Like when it's time to sit at the table, let's say I'm like, hey Rashad, I'm interested. Rashad, got you. This is good, Rashad. Rashad, you didn't do it on this episode, but can you let the people know why you're so quiet?
Oh, about the student loans? Yeah, no, I didn't have student loans.
So if you guys ever go see the first one, he was like, sophomore year, scholarship. All right, but let's just say we're about to date, right? And I know that you would probably ask, or I don't even know if you ask people this, but at some point, the financial analyst and conservative in you will want to have a conversation about debt. But if I'm sitting across from you, no, you got a life story, because it would be even better if you would chime in. But like, what if you wanted to date a girl that had $300,000 in loans? No, let's just go there for a second.
So talk about
Sorry,
that.
I took over, y'all.
Let's go there. Now let's go there, Sonia.
How would that, if I'm dating somebody that has $300,000 in loans, how does that impact me?
Are you dating them? Yes or no? Now this is your
I'm asking.
No, she's saying, are you going to date them if you know that?
Well,
pull on the hoodie.
I'm asking, is that going to have any impact on my life?
Is it?
I don't think so. Probably not.
But what happens, but jobs aren't guaranteed. What happens if I lose my job?
Well, you said dating or marry somebody?
No, but I think we should date to marry. What you think?
Well, you got to date before you get married.
So you're trying to say that I'm that marriage material?
No, I'm just saying, as far as I look at, like, if you getting married, right?
Okay. This is good because these are the conversations
sure,
that our age group has to have.
This is real spill.
If you're married to somebody, so how does that work? Your debt becomes their debt?
Well, it depends on how you were raised and what you think. So let me give you a good example. And I'm only trolling with him for fun. But when I actually do appointments, I'm not trying to be funny. Men book a lot of, Denise knows this, appointments for women that they are planning to propose to. I know when that woman's going to get a proposal before that man ever announced it. Why? Because he will call in. Listen, I want to book my girlfriend. I'm thinking about proposing, but she got 100,000 and she a teacher, but she don't be knowing about this stuff. And I got to see her get on, like, it's called PSLF before I propose. Like, he wants to know that there's a plan in place before going that route, because what could it affect? It could affect if they were doing joint taxes, taking the taxes. It could affect default. And if you get into what we call a permanent default, you in default for that 100K forever.
So what happens if you don't pay your student loans?
Yeah, default.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so after 270 days missed, now we're going to go into what we call default. Now, there's stages of default. The first time you go in default, you can get out. You can do a consolidation. Well, the program right now, if everybody's listening, is called Fresh Start. It's literally one click. You probably will get out in a few months, right? But that's going to go away, I think, Denise, in like a year, about one more year. So when that's done, it's back to what it was before, which is, are you consolidating if eligible, or are you going to do the 9 payments? It could be $5 payments on time. You know how many people don't make 9 $5 payments and then they never get out? So I met a gentleman and I was so excited when this Fresh Start program came out. He was in a permanent default. He burnt every option to get out twice. It's 2 options: consolidation, $5 9 times for $40,000. Everybody following? So he was in a permanent default for $40,000, unless he came up with $40,000, and they didn't even want to take payments from him. Like, it was bad. Like, they don't care at this point. He was like, I could do $300 a month. We need $600. Like, they don't have to negotiate with you at that point. So I was so excited when Fresh Start came out, because he was actually one of those people where he literally got what's called a fresh start. He's out of default. Now, if he mess up again, then it's his last.
But like, what exact? Because it's like, all right, let's say child support, right? If you don't pay child support payments, they forfeit your passport. They can take money from your paycheck.
Yep.
And
so take money from your paycheck.
In the worst case scenario, they can put you in jail.
Yep.
So what are the
student loans, taxes, paycheck? Never able to buy a house.
So they could take money out of your paycheck.
Yeah.
They could take money out of your taxes,
and then home buying with a federal loan product like a FHA.
Never be able to use it.
VHA, no, it's a federal loan. You already burnt them.
So and are there any student loans that don't require a credit check?
For federal? Well, federal loans don't require a credit check. Let's be clear. Like, it's almost like the biggest loan that you'll ever get in America without a credit check. You went to school, you're eligible, you have a high school diploma.
Anybody can get it.
If you have a high school diploma or GED.
It's just limited amounts.
Limited amounts, right? Protective amounts. It's the credit checks don't come in until you're trying to do like graduate plus loans.
Or private loans.
Yeah.
You need it for private loans?
Private loans for sure. Yeah. True story. Before my credit was good, I had to get a graduate loan and it wasn't good.
Yeah.
So they denied it. So I wrote an appeal, and I never forget, her name was Keisha. So I knew she was black. Keisha was like, no worries, I got you. And she approved it. Shout out to Keisha. I hope she still worked there.
Yeah, because there's no student loans for grad school.
Well, graduate plus loans or private loans.
Oh, yeah, the private ones.
But they could say no to you. So that's why the story was funny.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, I'm not going to finish my last semester. And then Keisha, I wrote my little letter.
Yeah.
She approved it.
So how much money do you need to go to college?
Well, where you going? So community college, I guess what we're talking about, like 20, 25,000. If we're talking about state colleges now, like 60, 70. Now, are we
Per year?
No, total.
Total, okay.
Total.
Yeah.
Are we talking about private institutions like HBCUs might be like, what do you say, like 25, 30 a year?
Probably.
Yeah. And again, it's all about your experience. So my game plan was I didn't go to a HBCU. I went to a predominantly white school. Shout out to Bloomsburg University. And they gave me a whole lot of scholarship. And on the weekends, I went to the HBCU.
So like for parents that has kids now, you would say that if you want to pay for your children's education in cash in 10 years, let's say, you would need at least $250,000 on the safe side. Because that would probably cover a top private school.
If that's where you want to go, yeah. Now, remember, there are certain Ivy League schools that are now saying if you make under, I think the number is 60,000 a year, according to your taxes, they'll give that child a free ride.
So this is crazy, right? Because when you think about all types of debt, especially in business, you can file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Right, there's chapter 11,
So
chapter 7.
No.
Are there any cases where student loan can be qualified in there?
More recently, there have been several successful cases where bankruptcy and federal student loans have happened and occurred. You see different politicians and lawmakers advocating for that. So there is actually and it's so new, it's hard to speak on, but there is about a 15, 20 page packet that you can fill out to apply for your student loans to be included in a bankruptcy. You have to go to a bankruptcy attorney in your state, and you have to go to one that's qualified. And if you are asking them questions and they don't even know that this packet exists, don't pay them. That's my rule of thumb. But there are some good attorneys that are up to the latest information, and it can be submitted now. This is like as of like the last 2 years.
Yeah, because I'm thinking 43 million people in debt.
Yeah.
Repayments are just starting. There's going to be plenty of forbearance, and there'll be plenty of defaults, and some people just won't be able to pay. And so forgiveness programs are great, but everybody won't qualify.
No.
And so some people are going to have to figure out another route. And so I could, in my mind, I don't know if you probably agree, I can see legislation being changed to add this into now.
It's actively being worked on. So I saw the packet.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is so the questions they asked were like, tell us about how your student loan debt would impact X, Y. Like, so you have to have time. You want to get a professional to help you answer those questions. And like I said, very rare cases. It hasn't been fully publicized, but it is being approved. Now we're talking like astronomical student loan debt, like $430,000 though. So that was one of the cases.
So how does it affect your credit score?
Well, so it's still a debt, and it's not a revolving line. So basically it's like a rock on your credit. That's how I always explain it. And when you start to pay on the principal, like let's say you owe $80,000 and you put extra money and it starts to shrink, your credit score goes up. It's like, oh, it's getting paid down. But the moment it comes off, so to those of you that all got forgiven, congratulations. But we're going to also hear a negative turn in the next 60 to 90 days. Everyone that got forgiven, their scores are going to plummet, especially when you talk about 150,000 in forgiven, 300,000 in forgiven. So if they were hoping to home buy, it's like, could you do it like today, or could you wait until you see what your new score is?
So when Biden, he tried to have a bigger plan, but the Supreme Court blocked it, right?
Yeah.
A couple months ago. What was that?
So, but that was all, in my opinion, like that was the plan, to be blocked. So I'm not a lawyer, and I knew that when I read it when it came out, I was like, oh, this is not going to go through. we were hopeful, but the legislation it went under wasn't the proper legislation. It was too much red tape, too many opinions, too many signatures needed. So the new program is going to come back under 1965 Higher Education Act. That's the one we think is going to be able to be passed under because Lyndon B. Johnson already sealed the deal.
How much would that?
Well, they haven't, interestingly enough, I know I read it to you, but they haven't given out numbers yet. Okay. But they have been sure to say that if you don't do by December 31st, that FFELP conversion, they're going to exclude about close to 10 million people.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So do you ever think there's a time where just all student loan will be forgiven?
Why would that be beneficial?
Well, if there's a student loan crisis, right, and you have millions of people who just can't pay their student loans, then that probably will have more of a...
Statistically, who can't pay their student loans?
Who can't?
Mm-hmm. I'm baiting you.
Low income people, I would assume. Middle class, low income.
What do they look like?
Black people.
Okay. So here's the thing. When we talk about the largest holders of student loan debt, they're African American women, 30 through 55.
Percentage wise or numbers wise?
Well, percentage of the borrowers in total who owns the most student loan debt, who has the most degrees, is that group of people. So it's interesting. You remember when they were talking about the number of forgiveness they were going to give out, either 10 or 20,000? Did you ever wonder why they ended at that number? So statistically, if they gave out 20,000, that cleared the population of white male borrowers.
Yeah, completely.
Still race.
Yeah, because the amount that they owed was around
under 20,000.
It was under 20,000. So I think the average. I remember reading this. The average was like $16,500 that they owed.
Yeah.
That they had at 20, that'll clear the entire.
So let's just keep going because I've got time. So now, when you clear out all of these women, black women with student loan debt, and I know that other people have student loans that are black, obviously, but statistically, now we put this population with no debt, most agreed, now they can become homeowners, you say? Now it changes the whole landscape of Welcome to America. So when you ask me, do I think they're going to eliminate? No. Why?
So you think that, okay, so it's a trap pretty much.
I'm not saying it's a trap. What I'm saying is this is where our community, when we talk about the black community, and I hate to just always take it to race, but statistically, it's just very glaring, has to be wiser and be informative about borrowing practices. Now, the challenge here is that a lot of times when we look at this number, that person is also the first to graduate in their family from college. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to take the pride away from those numbers. And the first to have a graduate degree, the first to have a doctoral degree. So we don't want to take any of that pride away. But what I'm saying is now grandmom, even, let's say your grandmom at this point, how do we help your child and your grandchild not be in that same number and same boat? Yeah. One of the things that we're concerned about is if we see our clients get out of student loan debt at, like, let's say age 40, 45, we see that person going back into student loan debt at age 50, 55 because of Parent Plus loans, because there's not a plan for their child or grandchild. Yeah.
So the plan is really, yes, if you want to achieve the same goal, all for it. How do we do it more effectively? How we do it more efficiently?
Mm-hmm. So I really love your platform, right? Because if somebody is a black woman that's 35 and she's really tuned in to stuff you guys are saying, sure, and she's following some of your strategies, she's thinking about real estate. I hate when I, use my friend over there, but she has we got 10 properties. She's a homeowner. She's a landlord. So she's changing the narrative for her daughter. So, her daughter shouldn't even have to know what a student loan is if we do this right, because there should be enough cash flow and income from her properties. Or maybe when her daughter goes to school, it's time to sell one. That is college tuition. So when we start changing the narrative of how we think about our finances and our wealth now, then we can set our children and grandchildren up differently. So we don't want to make anybody feel bad about what they did or didn't borrow. But what I'm saying is the conversation has to change so that we don't see this cycle keep being repeated, because I don't think there's going to be a wave of forgiveness to help out a significantly group of population such.
Can I go back for just a second? Because you said something and I understood from the standpoint of having loan forgiveness and that coming off of, your debt to income ratio in a sense. and your credit score plummeting, right? So most people wouldn't even understand that. They'll think, wait, it got cleared, my credit score should improve.
Yep.
But it really doesn't. Can you just explain why?
There's no more debt to factor. Like, not to be funny, you've had that debt probably for over 10 years. So it's used to your debt. So now you take it off the board. It's like, oh, how do we factor that into your mix, into your score? So now when you just take it off the board, and what's going to be a shocker to people the next 60 days is it's not gradually paying itself down. It's off.
Oh, right.
So when you held the 740, that 740 might look like a 640, all jokes aside, because that was a heavy part of your mix. That's going to be gone now. Then somebody asked me the other day, well, how do I keep that score up? You want the real answer? You need a mortgage. You need another debt similar to replace it of the same amount. I would hope if you would do that, it would be a mortgage and not another student loan.
Yeah, you got to balance that out.
Yep.
Also, the other part is from a tax standpoint, sometimes when loans are forgiven, does that go into your taxable income?
Very interesting you bring that up. So it is federally tax free until 2025. This is not a forever thing.
Oh
Yeah.
Do explain.
So after 2025, that's why it matters who gets elected too. That might be taxed. These are what we call provisions. These are not laws. So a provision is in place until 2025 to say you will be tax free. Let's say Biden gets reelected, pro student loan, he might extend it to 2030, right? Or whatever his term ends. But that's a provision. That's like president to president. So you got to understand the tax laws during that president's era. Certain states say, I don't care what the federal government is doing. If you get forgiven for $200K, we're taxing that as income.
Whew.
So what I would do, I would probably move. There's about 13 states, I think it is, and I don't know them offhand. Just Google it. And you live in one of them, and you know you got that letter. I got to move. Like, I don't even know, like, I'm being funny and serious at the same time. You're going to get taxed for that $200,000 in this example.
Good to know.
Yeah. And I had a client, that was a true story. Like, I had a client say, she was like, so I'm excited. She was like, but 100,000 taxed. She was like, in my state, she was like, I don't know. She was like, I think I need to move back in with my parents. They live in so-and-so. And I'm like, well, can you move? Like, can we put that change of address in? Like, can we file taxes at a new address? Because, yeah, she's going to get taxed.
All right. Well,
It sounds so heavy today.
there you have
It's
it.
a lot. My last thing, and before we go, you talked about scholarships, and I know kids and parents, this is tough. Is there a place that kids can go? I remember when you used to go to your guidance counselor, they had this book of all these scholarships. If you were left-handed, there was a scholarship. Is there one place or concrete place that they can go for scholarships and grants? Because we know grants don't have to be repaid as well.
So, I mean, there are many places you can go. It's just hard to shout out places that I think are still reputable. Like the Scholly app is one of my favorites if it's still around. I know like College Girl, JP, I think is her name. She's awesome. Let me see, HBCU Money Guide on Instagram. She is amazing with her work. I tend to post different scholarship strategies on my page here throughout because I know that they go hand in hand.
Got you.
We don't get into it because it's just, we don't have the capacity. What I will say is, you want to identify your child. If you're a parent watching this, you want to identify your child's strengths early on. And that's the scholarship money we're going to start gearing ourselves to. Like, you're going to know pretty soon, is your child sports or academics? Is your child techie or not? Because there's so much money out there, and there is really a lot of money there. But and I do have to say this because I used to sit on scholarship committees. Everybody thinks they're not eligible. Women, young ladies particularly, always think they're not eligible. I never forget, I had a young lady that was trying to go for nursing. The requirement was a 3.0 and some other things. She had a way above all the other requirements. She was super active. She had a 2.9. So I'm looking at her application, but she didn't do one last thing to apply. So I called her personally. I'm like, hey, her name was Jasmine. I'm like, I need you to put this in by midnight. She's like, no, it said a 3.0. So there's a psychology here that women, even with jobs, they look at one requirement, go, not eligible. Men go, I'm about to try anyway. So we would see young men at our committee get scholarships over young women. And I realized the psychology is a lot of young women would think because they miss one thing. So she thinks me to this day, she got the money. It was like $10,000 because she just applied anyway. Because now here's what happens. What a lot of people don't know behind the scenes. When there are private donors that are giving like the 3 and the 5,000s, however, they are asking the committee's opinion. So if I'm looking at Bobby, who has a 3.2, but Bobby joined no activities in school. But I'm looking at Jasmine, who's a 2.9, but she was class president. She was this, she was this, she was this. I don't know. I'm probably going to go with Jasmine because she still had good grades and she managed all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then Bobby just was in school. So then I have to tell the person who's giving the money, my professional opinion would be, let's go with Jasmine, because we know when she gets to school and becomes an active member of her community at school, she's going to do good and still add to the value of their community. Oh, that's a good perspective. Let's give it to Jasmine.
Shout out to Jasmine.
Yep.
Don't forget to come pick up your pieces.
Yes. So that's a good example. And that's how scholarship, the minds of a scholarship committee works. Yeah. When you submit things like that, especially when they're small and informal, they want to look to see who's really doing the work, because it's all about, in schools, this is a good one for schools. Schools want to give money to people that have shown proven history in high school of being active and value members. Like they want to put you on the billboard. So when I went to Bloomsburg and got all of that money, it's because I was a part of everything in high school. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to do what? Be a part of everything here in college. You can put me as an ambassador. You might want to put me up there like, this is how schools think about when they give institutional money, if that makes sense. So my advice is, if you're a high schooler watching this, or you have a high schooler and you look at your child and your child isn't doing anything, just going to school, that's not enough. What church committee can they join? What nonprofit can they assist? What do their weekends look like? Are they a leader in any capacity? And this is where I say it has to be hands-on parenting 9 through 12, because you have to make your child go and do something. And I know that we're just like, well, he's a good kid, he just be in the house on his phone. Well, that's not going to cut it in this time when we're trying to give out money.
There you have it. Well, another great episode, a lot of information. How can people follow you?
What's definitely spend out of that $300K, but we're just definitely going to episode. I like that though. I gotta learn that tactic. So let's talk about the save play. I think we talked you guys
300 a lot. No, 300 a lot.
Oh my God, you guys gotta do a whole episode on it.
Yo, 300 a lot.
Like a survey question. You can follow me on Instagram.
What you're saying is real. Like, I'm married, so like that was later on in relationship. It was like, yo, how much debt?
So did you guys talk about it after marriage?
Before.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I'd be surprised. Most people talk about it after.
I had student loan debt, right? So I know what mine is at. I'm like,
what you got?
Yeah, so where you at with it? So like, so we know, and what's gonna be the plan,
right?
How are we gonna bring down this debt?
Yeah.
So.
Well, most people don't talk about it till after, surprisingly enough, and then now it don't look so fun to be in this situation. And I do think that people that have 300,000 should be able to be married. That's not what I'm saying, because I don't feel like those trolls. What I'm saying is it's gotta be a plan, because if this woman owes 300, I would hope her income would be on par to support that. Maybe she's already a doctor in that case, right? Yeah. So we know that there's something ambitious about this person. Maybe she can hold this job. But if you meet this person that owes 6 figures and they don't have ambition and they don't, that's a different conversation. Yeah. So I'm gonna let you ride though. You can follow me on Instagram, The Student Loan Doctor. We have a YouTube channel that's out. Just type in The Student Loan Doctor. If anybody pops up other than, little black girl, that's probably not me. They do duplicate me, And I appreciate you guys.
There
you have it. Thank you guys for rocking with us. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.